You're in the rant wormhole where I rant about whatever it is the members of my Discord server tell me to rant about for free. This rant is for Kieran, otherwise known as Il, my token Irish friend, and he told me to rant about why I like Xi Jinping. And my stance on this may seem rather odd because I've defended freedom of speech many times. I've said that, my channel is a bastion of freedom of speech, that the mere existence of it is a testament to that First Amendment right. But Xi Jinping, despite the elements of him that I disagree with, despite the elements of the Chinese Communist Party that I disagree with, that institution is ultimately doing good for the people and the world at large. You look at America. What is America doing on the global stage? Barack Obama, when he was in office, started bombing 5 more countries after Bush had been bombing 2 of them, Iraq and Afghanistan. And as president, Obama continued the bombing of those countries, as well as adding several more onto the list. This caused immense amount of poverty and suffering in the world, as well as the rise of ISIS. They had funneled money into militant groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda, who, by the way, Al-Qaeda was the ones who did 9/11. Many of them Saudi Arabian, by the way. In fact, the majority. But we don't talk about that because we got to give them nuclear weapons to make more money. But you look at someone like Barack Obama, you look at someone like Macron, Theresa May. What do these people have in common? They are global imperialists. What they do, their place in the world, is to work for the hegemonic institutions of capitalism that cause vast amounts of famine and starvation in countries like Haiti, Argentina, Colombia, Libya. In Libya, when under Muammar Gaddafi, they had the highest living standard in Africa, one of the highest living standards in the Middle East. Now you look at it and General Haftar is coming in, he's got most of the country, and he's about to take the capital, Tripoli, which is run by the UN forces after we went in and killed Muammar Gaddafi. But what's happening in the streets? Children, young women and girls are being sold in the streets of Libya. And this is a direct result of people like Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton in their administration vying for the ties of Israel and Saudi Arabia, doing whatever they can to extract the resources of those countries and to cause as much suffering as possible at the helm of getting those resources. Why is it? Why is it that the global capitalist powers of this world continue causing more and more suffering because of profit? Because that is what will cause them the most profit. That is the people who they're in the hands of. Wall Street, the big oil companies, the Koch brothers. These are the people that are in the hands of Barack Obama and Theresa May and any number of global politicians throughout the world. In fact, the majority. This is what, in Lenin's book, I have it here somewhere, Imperialism, the Highest Stage of Capitalism, is about. It's about these giant mega corporations taking a bigger and bigger share of the global market to the point where they have direct influence over countries. This can mean directly invading a country, like I said, in the case of Libya, to get, oil and other resources, to get direct human resources, cheap labor, and things like that because of the trade protectionism that the Libyan government had, which prevented that. They want to get the human and ecological resources within the country. Now, that is one example of imperialism. But I think a much more staunch example of imperialism, one that is hidden from the eye, but even more severe, is a country like Greece or Colombia. These are 2 countries that have been severely, severely hurt by big pharma, the big corporations throughout the world, big oil, these giant billionaires, technocrats that want the resources inside of that country, and they want to hold influence over the politicians and the companies within that country. And so the people of those countries do not have control over the resources in their country. They don't have control over their democracy. The people who are in control of their democracy are these ginormous companies who are investing and putting money into these resource projects like extracting oil. What Lenin talks about in his book is that when these big industrial capitalist powers start taking more and more pieces of the pie in these smaller countries, when the global big banks start becoming part of these other big energy entities, and they start coming together to form these giant mega corporations, and they hold influence over these smaller countries that don't have even close to the amount of wealth as these big corporations have. What happens when you have that influence over the country is that they are ultimately going to be controlled by that big capitalist entity. Their democracy is going to be undermined. The people, the wishes of the people, are going to be undermined by those corporations holding influence over the elections of and over the resources of that country just through big business. And when you have a country like the United States that's this big, that's bullying all these other small countries, you need someone else to come up and say, we're going to build infrastructure. We're going to make your economy work, not just for the top 1%, but for all of the people throughout the world. And I think the Belt and Road Initiative by Xi Jinping and the current Communist Party of China is a fantastic step in that direction, because it isn't just, trying to take control over land and resources, trying to take control of what these people can or cannot do in these countries. Instead, it is liberating the people by giving them infrastructure, by giving them a way to build a life for themselves, by giving them opportunity. And this is ultimately uniting the third world in a global struggle to develop on the level that the first world is in. And I think, the Belt and Road Initiative is a fantastic way to stop poverty, to give opportunities to people in these countries. And, after the years and years of abhorrent imperialism committed by the first world countries like the United States, the millions upon millions of deaths, bodies piling in the streets, little girls being sold into slavery as a direct result of US imperialism. I welcome China into these countries to come build infrastructure, to come give jobs, to help connect them to the global world. This is the type of step that the world needs in order to foster a more peaceful and prosperous world that isn't controlled by the global hegemonic powers and the capitalist class inside of the US and the rest of their puppet states. So the reason I like Xi Jinping is simply because he is fighting for the working people of the world. Now, China, I don't believe, is a socialist country. I think it's a capitalist country. But I think it's undeniable the anti-imperialist roots of the Belt and Road Initiative and of the movement that China has throughout the world to help build infrastructure, to help fix the environment. Look at all of the innovations that they're making to try and reduce smog, to try and move towards clean energy. These are ginormous steps that you can only make through central planning that the US is simply not making. And so even though I disagree with Xi Jinping on many things, I think the Belt and Road Initiative and the global push for more representation of different types of governments that want to, not just work for the big corporations in the first world, but rather for the people of their own countries. I think this is a fantastic step for the global liberation of the working people. And I think Xi Jinping is a good man. If you look at the amount of poverty that's been reduced in China as a direct result of Xi Jinping being in power, it is an undeniable fact that poverty has gone down because of the Chinese Communist Party, because of them giving more jobs, because of them building more infrastructure. This is lifting people out of poverty. This isn't simply being done because, it's the most profitable solution. It is profitable, but if you look at the trains that are being built, for instance, people have to pay $70 to get on the train. With the amount of money it would have cost to build that high-speed rail all over the country, they should be paying something like $500. The reason they do this is because it is socially beneficial to the Chinese people to have these trains, to have this infrastructure, to have these jobs. This is lifting people out of poverty. This is bringing them closer to the global world. And I think Xi Jinping is a great man for doing these things and for bringing China into a global superpower instead of being being the same country that everyone pushes around and says, oh, they're too authoritarian, they have a different idea about how to run their government. Instead, they're taking action to foster allies, to build infrastructure in other countries, and to do what is ultimately good for the global world. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.